Today on Cyber Clinic Podcast, we're diving into the intersection of education technology and human potential with Daniel Mwavua. Daniel is a dedicated educator with over 15 years of experience in the DC metro area, where he has inspired students to develop a passion for math, robotics, and lifelong learning. A multicultural thinker and study abroad travel ambassador, Daniel believes the world itself is a living classroom, one that encourages curiosity, fosters connection, and cultivates a global perspective. What truly sets him apart is his forward thinking approach to AI in education. He sees artificial intelligence not as a threat, but as a tool for equity, creativity, and transformation. Today, we'll explore how Daniel's global outlook, curiosity driven teaching, and integration of technology are preparing students for a smarter, more connected world. So let's get started and uncover how one's educator's vision is shaping the future of learning one student and one moment at a time. Daniel, is there anything that I have not added here that you would like to add in addition to that?
No, you've pretty much covered it. The only thing I'd like to add maybe is I've also been in business, real estate and business. My brother and I did run a mortgage business early 2000s. So that can kind of tell you why maybe I evolved into mathematics. Yeah. So,
Right, that's
yeah.
good to know.
Mhm.
So we are addressing the first segment of the questionnaire, the journey of an educator. Daniel, you've been
Yes.
teaching for over 15 years in the DC metro area. What first inspired you to become an educator, and how has your purpose evolved?
So I didn't become an educator through the usual, you're 5 years old and decide to tell your parents or your parents or your teachers, I want to be a teacher. No, actually, my initial thought was to become a business person, conquer the world, and then I can figure out what else to do. But my high school teacher, who I'm still very good friends with today, she kept on checking in on me and telling me I should check on becoming a teacher. And I always wondered why. So sometimes you need to be open to listening to other people because other people sometimes see something in you that you may not be able to see in yourself. Around 2010, I had the opportunity to volunteer at her school. I did take an opportunity to volunteer, and then she said you could get paid anytime you're free. Come volunteer and you get paid. So I become a substitute. I kind of tested out the high school, the elementary, and eventually I end up with middle school, which was kind of my area. But most people would rather say that's the most challenging. That's when the teenagers become teenagers, 12, 13, 14 years old. And many people have mercy on me anytime they hear I teach the teenagers. But just to say, I wasn't the conventional, hey, I'm going to. So I was a career changer. Yes, I was a career
Oh,
changer.
yeah,
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah.
So that passion for growth and purpose really shines through your work, especially as you bring innovation into the classroom. My next question to you here is this. You describe yourself as a lifelong learner. How has that mindset influenced the way you teach and connect with students today?
So I've always been fascinated by how people learn, grow, and make sense of this world. In addition to, based on that, how can I actually cause positive human behavior change? You know, human beings are very interesting uh, people because we might know exactly what to do, but we won't do it. Drinking water is good for you, exercise is good for you, we still won't do it.
Right.
On and on and on. So my thing was, how can I cause positive human behavior change? And based on being fascinated, how do people learn? How do they grow? How do they make sense of the world?
Right.
So with that, that has inspired me to remain humble and curious. That keeps me growing. So it's a very awesome task every day to be able to have the responsibility of turning on the next Einstein or turning off by simply what you did that day. You can you can affect a student positively or affect them negatively. Hence, blessing the world with the next Einstein or shutting the door to someone who might have blessed the world with their talents. Um, I don't know if I finished or I fleshed out that question enough.
Oh, no, you have elaborated on it quite well, and it's interesting to know, to bring the idea that curiosity is the foundation behind any kind of learning. You know, that's the key for any kind of advancement in learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. What inspired you to introduce robotics into your curriculum, and how have your students responded to this hands-on approach to learning?
Okay. Thank you for the question. I won't take full credit for that because I do teach in a public school, and it came about as part of what students need to learn based on where the world was going.
Right.
So a lot of people, older people, are shocked when, I say, yeah, we're learning robotics. At what stage? They start high school? I'm like, no, we're in elementary and we're learning robotics because that's the new language. That's where the world is going. And so they do need to be comfortable with robotics early on because robotics are going to replace a lot of jobs, repetitive jobs that are done by human beings. I say let's embrace it. Let's not be fearful of it because robotics invites creativity, teamwork, persistence, collaboration. Um, Another reason why I also helped bring about that to my students was that we actually learned at the same pace. Now, of course, I did take professional development for it, but even the creators of the course said, hey, look, you will be learning at the same time your students are learning. And I was like, that's fantastic. Because I like to present myself as a facilitator and not necessarily as I'm going to teach you and you're going to receive. And that's kind of like 19th century learning. And we've evolved. In fact, in today's society, in today's environment, if I simply lecture at the elementary level and I would get a bad evaluation because research has shown we need students collaborating, working with each other, fleshing ideas from the students, the teachers, not just the teacher. So
Yeah.
it does help us become more creative and more collaborative, which is kind of the way the world is going.
Right. I concur with that. And you mentioned something very important here in the field of education as far as being a facilitator, as opposed to being the sage on the stage where you are at the center of the whole teaching and not learning at the same time. It used
Right.
to be the traditional way of teaching where you are at the center of the whole thing. You are covering everyone's horizons. No experience, no one else's experience can come your way. And then as if you are the only resource for everything that those students would be able to know. And I think this is a transition that has made it easy to become a facilitator as opposed to just being a teacher and then that's all there is to it.
Yes,
Yeah.
in fact, I do usually tell my students at the beginning of the school year, if you're going to learn only from me, then I've failed my job. And
Right.
they still kind of have a hard time understanding that because they're like, you're the teacher. So, but I tell them, you need to learn from every single person in this room because they can teach you something that I may not be able to teach you.
Right.
So we learn from each other.
Yeah.
And my job as a facilitator is to create that environment where that can actually take place. So how do I do that? I would need to actually create a place where students feel safe, right? A lot of
Right.
times at that age, they're very unsure about themselves and they may not want to look like they don't know. I have a big banner in my class that says, "Mistakes are a part of learning," so that it kind of brings down that nervous energy when someone's afraid to make a mistake. But I keep threading that in. Mistakes are a part of learning.
Yes, that's true. And even Einstein can corroborate that. He said, if I recall well, he said, "Don't worry about your difficulties in math. He can assure anyone that he's a grader." So, so
Yes.
he said, right, Einstein.
Yes. Yes. Hmm.
I have another question here for you. You've shared that the possibilities of AI in education inspire you. What excites you most about AI's potential in the classroom?
One, um, personalized learning. So where I do teach, there's students at very many different levels, right? We have students in sixth and seventh grade who are at a third grade level in math and reading, fourth grade level math reading, fifth grade math and reading. In addition to, they might have come here as an immigrant, so English is not their first language. So even though they may be able to say, actually, I do have students who they come with no English. There's some who are kind of mid-level, and there's some who are advanced, but still, technical language is still a hard path to navigate for them. So if you can imagine a classroom, let's say 25, and there's all these different levels, AI, I believe, can help me circumvent or short circuit that learning curve for them. And so that we can focus on the human connection versus, for example, I can give them a diagnostic test. AI can quickly create practice problems for that particular student, not for everybody. Not everybody needs those set of practice problems. Some students are grade level, some might be above grade level, but why give everybody the same thing? Which was kind of more like the 19th, 20th century teaching. Everybody gets one thing. So AI can personalize learning. In addition, AI can help teachers have more time with students face to face versus spending more time preparing a lesson plan, right? So it can give ideas, can generate ideas for the teacher on how to be more creative in terms of a concept that might be difficult for the teacher or the students and make it more palatable
Yes,
for both teachers and students.
and students, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree because it's the same thing in terms of the role that AI plays in any other field, especially the medical field. It also allows for medical professionals to have much more time on the bedside near their patients so they can provide the emotional care and anything else that might be necessary in that human contact. So that's the same impact, I guess, it has in allowing teachers to be able to save time and be able to communicate more and establish that differences in terms of knowing which student is at a lower or greater level or at the grade level. So that allows them to decipher exactly when to help.
Right. Additionally, I also forgot feedback. So not all feedback needs to necessarily come from the teacher.
Right,
The AI can actually give feedback and multiple explanations, right?
right.
So I usually hear from many parents about this new math, right? And I usually say it's not really new math. What it's saying is that your way of learning how to divide, right, is okay. But let's add on, there's other ways we can
Yeah,
add on to it. So a lot of parents think that their way is gone and shouldn't be used. But no,
right.
you teach your students your way, have them teach you the new other way. but
Right.
that creates opportunities for everybody to access math, right? Some
Right.
people need visuals versus some they could just learn with the numbers, but some people need visuals.
Right.
So the Common Core, a lot of people, I always say it was sold, marketing was not done very well. Okay. Because
Yeah.
it's not that you're doing away with other ways that have worked, they're just adding to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and marketing is a great force. It's got its political component attached to it as well. So it plays its
Yes.
part.
Mhm.
How can teachers integrate AI tools in a way that enhances learning rather than replaces human connection and creativity?
So I'll take AI as a tool, not the teacher,
Right.
right? Um, AI needs to add to our thinking, needs to enhance our thinking versus replacing it. It can brainstorm ideas, but we as human beings have to make the decisions, ethical decisions. We have to come to our work with integrity. I actually had to do a presentation on integrity for my students because there was this challenge like, hey, I could just pop it in AI, and or I could have, sometimes you have the parents doing the homework, sometimes you have AI doing the homework. So I had to do a presentation on integrity. How's that going to help you now and in your future? So one part of AI is we have to be careful is it's not replacing our thinking, it's not replacing it's a tool. It helps us bring some ideas, but shouldn't necessarily let it, we're supposed to be still leaders, which is something that is, I think, lacking in this world of today. We're lacking leaders. Um, I don't know. You could blame it on social media. I don't know why, but some people blame it on social media. Others, technology is going so fast that people can catch up to it. I say we embrace it. AI can also, I think, generate practice problems for students to help cement the learning. It can also help students with language barriers to build the conceptual and abstract thinking. But also, at that same time, teachers need to build trust and belonging. So AI can't, at the same time, replace that, at least not yet.
Right.
We usually say students don't care how much you know. They need to first, they don't care what you want them to learn until they know you care about them, pretty much.
Right.
I haven't done a good service of saying that saying, but I think those educators know what I mean.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then the last thing is, it should give us, AI should give us more time for humanity, not less, because human connection is still at the heart of learning. And the challenge now, even before AI really just took off, I dare say, and feel free to disagree or agree, but I dare say we are so connected, but at the same time, I think the most disconnected I think we've ever been. I'm not sure necessarily that, I still think we should still go on with AI, and technology is still a great thing, embrace it. And that's one challenge we need to figure out. How do we still connect on a human level and not think that just because I can text my mom, parent, dad, they're upstairs, I can text them and I never really have to meet them face to face. I dare say that's one challenge we're having in the classroom. Misbehaviors are becoming more intense because I feel at home there's no human connection. Technology is just taking over. I mean, you see even students on the road walking home, they're on their phones. adults walk, they're on their phones. When do you still maintain that human connection? I think that's something we're losing, and we have to figure out a way to bring it back.
Right. I agree with that. And I have something that I can attest to. I had one time I had a group of students waiting for me, and the class was about to start, but we needed a security to come and open the door because it was an electronic door and it needed somebody to open it. So all of them were sitting close to the classroom, outside of it, and every one of them was on their phone. So it was, and I said, how do you sit so close to each other yet so distant from each other in terms of being able to communicate with each other? So they're talking and looking at all sorts of media, interesting stuff that could be of interest to them, or that takes away their attention for some reason. But there was no contact. They were all just sitting there on their phones, and that's it. And then it came to them that, wait a minute, yeah, I was sitting next to someone, but so immersed into their phones that takes away a whole lot that otherwise they would not be able to, if it were not for the phone. But one other aspect of that too is that, if you don't mind my adding that,
Mm,
it's in a technologically driven environment, it may be perceived that way. But some other areas outside of our region here, if you go outside of the country, you would feel, oh, wait a minute, those folks really feel that human connection that you mentioned because they are interconnected in so many ways. They are together, they're working, they're doing all of their activities without being displaced by their phones or anything like that. But it depends on the environment too. That could be the perception that this is what it is. But other than that, it could be different in some other areas too.
mm. You remind me of I took students to during the summers. I have the opportunity to take students to some part of the world, and we took them to Costa Rica. And as we were going through up some mountains, there were great views. And the students drew the curtains and got on their phones. It was during the day. And we were
Mhm.
like, you're missing why you came here.
Yes,
And so it was amazing. We learned that we had to kind of create some rules about when you could have your phone out and when you could. So
yeah,
that after that experience, we definitely had that on play, and it worked out very well. We kept them
yeah,
so busy that they hardly had time for their phones.
yeah, that's true. And there's a whole lot of ADHD issues that happen as a result of technological use of some gadgets. But I guess that's a different aspect
Yes,
to
that's a
the,
big
yeah.
one. That's a big one.
Let me ask you another question. From your
Mhm.
perspective, what are the biggest misconceptions about AI among teachers and students?
That AI is coming for everybody's jobs, and I think that's a big misconception. What another one is, it's always with my students, especially. In fact, forget AI, just Google. They believe Google will give you correct answers or AI will give you correct answers, which you and I know that's not true. We have to have critical thinking. There's a course I used to teach where I would show, we were trying to help students learn how to navigate false information on the internet and true information. So we have a real article, newspaper article, titles, editor, everything. And we have a picture of a girl being on skis, going downhill on skis, being chased by a bear. And we asked them, is this a true story? And most of them said, of course, he has an editor, blah, 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 blah. And we say, well, it's actually false. So we teach them how to navigate that space. Now, excuse me, when it comes to, is it coming for everybody's jobs? Well, I say during the internet back in, well, I think it was when the year 2000 was about to happen, everybody was thinking the world's coming to an end. I would dare say let's embrace it, just like those who embraced the internet then got much further ahead. And let's do that now versus reacting to when we are forced to now leave that job because we didn't see it coming. It is coming. Change is coming. I wouldn't say it's necessarily change and opportunity. So, okay, your job as a cashier is going to be taken up. Well, let's go back and retool your skills to learn how to fix that robot, that machine that will be taking those orders now. So go back. So opportunity versus it's all over, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Demystifying those misconceptions starts with access, and that leads us to equity in education. How can AI and digital learning tools help bridge gaps in access, especially for students from underrepresented or underserved backgrounds?
That's a tricky question because I can say that it can act as an on-demand tutor, which it can, AI, something which many students don't have access to, especially those financially challenged communities. Now, why? Because it adapts to their pace, it can give them instant feedback and supports multiple learning needs. If you're a multilingual learner, it can translate, scaffold some hard to understand vocabulary. Now, for underserved communities, even though AI can do all this, the question is, do they have internet access? Do they have the technology? Do they have the ability to even go to okay, you could say, well, there's libraries. Well, if you can think that, a lot of times we're privileged. I quickly learned in education that I was privileged, even though I didn't grow up in a home with lots of money. Just because my parents had a library in the house, I was privileged. Just seeing them open the book, I was privileged. So we have to figure out how to equitably make sure every child has access to the internet and the availability to do their academics on an internet service. So that's the challenge. Even though the AI is here, well, how do we figure out everyone getting access to the internet at a very affordable price, if not free? I think at one time it'll be a right to have internet access.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's important to know how to, even when you have all the resources at your disposal or within your vicinity, a support system is always good to help guide you and help you discern exactly which one is the right resource to use or the wrong resource to use when something is biased or is not biased. Then
Mm,
being so well surrounded by people who can help you do all of these things, it's a very good asset that you have at your disposal or in your reservoir of resources to use. So yeah, that's important to you. That's important to know among all those tools that we have, is that the internet is one thing. The information that's disseminated on the internet is not
mm,
to be taken at face value. It's the same thing for
mm,
AI. It's the same thing
yes.
for Wikipedia. In the academic world, you
Mhm.
could not use Wikipedia as a reference. It's to show you that anyone can modify that. And not only that, the information that's being used usually tends to be the ones that are biased depending upon the group that put it out there. So all of these
Mhm.
things are, I guess, just to corroborate what you indicated earlier, it helps to know these things. This way,
Yes.
then you don't fall into the getting the wrong information, thinking you got the right tools in your hands and that you're misusing it without even knowing. So yeah, that's important, I guess, to know.
Additionally, Claude, you just reminded me there's The amount of time you spend on social media will create an ecosystem of things that it knows you like, algorithms, right? So
Right.
you may not be seeing another part of the world literally just by the likes you keep, the reels you keep liking. So it'll create your own kind of ecosystem that may be false, right?
Right.
You cannot even, you wouldn't even be able to reach out and see what else is out there. So you're right. I agree. We have to, in fact, invest in teacher training where we can teach them that you're getting these things not because uh, there's a reason why you're getting these feeds sent to you.
Right.
You should, everyone should know that, be aware of
Right.
that. Now, how
Yes.
do you trick the algorithm so that you can be getting reels where you don't become biased towards one thing or another? And
Right.
this happens subconsciously, where
Right.
eventually you'll just start believing something because you've seen it so many times. So
Yes.
yeah, teacher training is so important.
Yeah. Addiction to technology, this is how they come. They are well designed for you to be addicted to them. And I had
Yeah.
a separate podcast on that that I had done. It's already on there, but it's a different um, um, podcast for that.
Mm.
Um, Daniel, I have another question here for you. As a study abroad travel ambassador, you have helped students see the world as a classroom. Why do you think global exposure is so crucial in today's education?
Well, the internet has really helped narrow down the reach into the world. So for example, what do I mean? You can see how different cultures celebrate through dances, through weddings, just with your iPad, with your computer connection to the internet. You don't have to necessarily go there, but now that human connection, it's one thing to see it, and it's one thing to also be there. So this program has actually shown, so every summer I have the opportunity to take students, inner city students, especially those who have not traveled outside the DMV area, District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia area, to some part of the world. Research has shown that those students who take a moment to travel outside of what they know, they usually graduate faster. They usually not only high school, but also college, especially if they do another trip in college. They usually graduate faster. They have more fulfillment in their life. And they also appreciate that people do things differently, and not that does not make them bad, or that does not make them inferior. So being able, especially with the turmoil that's going on around the world, it's good to know that we also felt with we are also challenged with global issues, right?
Right.
Global climate. So how do we get everybody on board? Now, if I don't know anything about you, but then we are faced with a global challenge, how are we going to even have start communicating, right? So visiting other countries, learning their culture, learning their foods, it's not an issue if I like or don't like them. That's not the issue. The issue just understanding why they do what they do. Okay, they can also learn why I do what I do, and together we can learn each other's different perspectives and respect each other, so that we can now face the new world challenges together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that global lens also changes the way students think about culture, empathy, and
Mhm.
collaboration. Yeah.
Yes.
How do
Yeah.
you help students connect what they learn in the classroom to real world global issues and perspectives?
So you do have to know your students. And how do you know your students? So sometimes I do have some projects that help. For example, at the beginning of the school year, we go through this profile picture, pretty much put on large piece of paper, your picture, and then we also put things that tell us about yourself. Not only that, during my teaching, so that helps them open up. They really excited about that somebody once interested in who I am. Once they do that, when it comes to teaching, I really try to bring their parents' jobs, if I do know what their parents do, or I fast forward and say in 5 years, in 10 years, you may be doing this. So how are we going to, how does this help us in that new career that you've chosen? We also sometimes have there's a game that I haven't done this recently, but there's a game that we give the students a paycheck, right? Quote unquote paycheck. And different students get different paychecks. So some are the minimum wage, some are very wealthy. And before we do that, though, we ask them, hey, what are your needs? What are your wants? Of course, the students are like, I want the most expensive Jordan shoe, Nikes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, what are some of these fancy fashion names? Gucci, belts, this and that. And eventually, now we give them their paycheck. And those who received a minimum wage, they start seeing, oh, man, I better shop at Target, not at the Gucci store. And they come away with that with, you do have to make decisions based on the resources you have. And they learn that it's not all about the showbiz, because of
Yeah,
course the people
showing
on
off.
TV, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good lesson they learned that there's
yeah,
wants and there's needs. How do you make it happen? Someone who had chosen to have a car now decided, you know what, I can get by with a bicycle. Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so we
It's
try about,
fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
fascinating how those global experiences can shape personal growth and
yes.
digital citizenship.
Mm.
In an increasingly connected world, what skills do you believe students need most to thrive in both technology and humanity?
I think that's a good question. You're asking what skills do students need most in a connected world, pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah, what skills do you believe students need most to thrive in both technology and humanity?
So I think technical skills blended with human skills. Now, I believe technical skills might come to the students very easily, although we still have to be there to guide them. For example, we talked earlier on fake news versus real news. Human skills, that's a challenge because right now you can find an 18-year-old who's giving you one word answers, and they're not talking because their face is glued to the screen. So technical and human skills, a blend of that. Definitely critical thinking, even with creativity, even with AI, we also still need to be creative creatures. Along with that, collaboration. That's what they're looking for in the workplace. Once again, like I said, we have such big challenges. They can't be relegated to just one person or a few people. As a world, we have to come together with the global challenges. We have to come together and collaborate on solving these challenges that we face as a human race. Cultural awareness is important, and that's why I do the study abroad project every summer. I think you can only respect people who you've interacted with. You've figured out what's behind what they do. So, apart from that, adaptability and also being able to have emotional intelligence. So, I think those are what would help.
Students thrive.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's very important because the cultural component to that, it helps students to understand each other better as far as their backgrounds. So that makes a big difference too.
Yes. Mhm.
You've said that you draw inspiration from the world around you, from history to wildlife. How do those personal curiosities show up in your teaching style?
So in my classroom, I have a shirt that says "Be curious," and I'm curious about history. We have that saying, history repeats itself. So I'm usually very curious about history because once again, it repeats itself.
Yeah,
Um, in the classroom, how does it show up? Maybe through storytelling, real world connections. Like I said earlier, maybe if I know a parent's job, I might connect it to what we're doing in class, and just a sense of wonder. Math, I always say the problem with math is the language. Many people run away from math and they're like, oh, math is too hard. I usually ask parents, please don't ever say that. And if you just did say that, never say that again, especially while your students while your children are listening, because children will check out once the parent says, oh, if they get a C, I'm happy with that because it was hard for me too. Some parents, they're sincere, but I'm sorry, but they're sincerely wrong because they are not connected to their students. The
right.
student's mind is a great thing. So I try to create a sense of wonder, curiosity, and help them remember that just as in nature, math is about patterns. So hopefully that can start making sense to them that it's not as challenging as people say it to be. It's just, hey, is it the language? Is it I think it's the language one. And I also try to make sure that they remember math is about patterns. Now, for example, when I say it's about language, for example, if I asked a student who's never done multiplication before, I asked them, what is 3 times 4? Of course, they might be confused. But if I told them 3 groups of 4, how much is that? Of course they can do it, especially if they can add, right?
Right.
So that kind of brings it down. So just relating math to everyday things, what their parents do, and that math is a pattern.
Right. Um, I recall from those different experiences in terms of teaching math myself.
Mhm.
I had a student who well, it's not the only one, but I had a student who walked up to me and said, "Well, Professor Bernard, I think I've never been good at math, and that math is not for me." You know, you tend to hear these things. And it's unfortunate when a student waits until the end of the semester to point this out because you could have addressed it in ways that you can, but not necessarily true. It's it's when a student believes that there's nothing he or she can do about math, it's very unlikely you can actually bring that student up to par because that student has reached a level where um he or she should not have been there, meaning in
Mm,
terms of the level that that student may have been. Now,
mm,
that student was damaged before because she was told that this is not for you or you are not good at this. And she
mm,
grew believing, in fact, that it didn't apply to her. And she took it as too way beyond her cognitive ability to adjust to. And that really brought her down.
mm,
So it's my I love doing these things in terms of having students of different background. And this is where I brought the notion of ethnomathematics in there to
mm,
address the different issues pertaining to their difficulties. Because a great many of us, our students, tend to think that math is not for them, as if
mhm,
it comes from a particular region of the world and that it only has to do with certain groups. Whereas nobody was born with a stamp and say, you know what, you for math, you not for math, or there's no such thing.
Mhm.
So it's critical that parents and other people understand. If somebody doesn't understand a way or a concept, break it down in such a way that your audience is able to understand it at the level that that student is, and not take it where others are. Once you understand your audience, then you know what the content of what you are delivering to that audience is and should be. And
Mhm.
to parents who may be listening to this, it's critical that you understand that math is just like any other subject. It requires thinking, it requires time. You set yourself up to it, you read over, and if you don't get it, then you try it again. And when you
Mhm.
do try it again, use a different approach. I recall, I usually give that example. I recall there was this guy who took the license exam in terms of a driving license exam. On his 282nd time, that's when he was able to pass it. Now,
Wow.
had he stayed much longer, I mean, not much longer, had he done that, I mean, had he not done it, then you would think, well, you can't, you definitely can do this. Give it up. So it brings courage. It brings understanding that, you know what, maybe those different approaches were not well. So let me try a different one, you know? So that's
Mhm.
just to make sense of what you said, just to add a little bit more to what you already said. And I totally agree with that.
No, Claude, you've really. I'm not sure if there are any parents here. What Claude has said is golden. I had a student who every day she'd walk in my class from the first day and say, "I'm not good at math, and this is just a torture on my intelligence." And at first, I told her, "Look, can we just say every day for the next 20 days, I am good at math?" And she would refuse. But guess what? Every day at the door and I greet her, I would tell her, "You're good at math." She refused
Yeah.
to say. That student ended up with an A minus at the end of
See?
the year.
Right. It
There
makes
are
a
other
big
students.
difference.
Yeah. And then I remember three sixth grade students. I moved on with them from sixth grade. I taught them seventh grade, then taught them eighth grade. I challenged them and told them, right now, and these were students with uh, English was their second language. And so they were doing a lot. You have to interpret, they were doing a lot. And then you have math. And so I told them, don't worry about answer getting. I just need you to focus on the process.
Right.
And the shock to them was that, mathematicians spend more time getting things wrong than right.
Exactly.
By the time they get it right, they've done 1,000 computations and gotten it wrong. And they're like, huh? I'm like, yeah. And so they stuck with me. And right now they're in college and they are 4.0 students. And
See?
the ones who
Yeah.
were, I hope that if there are any parents here, please don't tell your child, don't keep telling, and teachers do this too. You're so good at math. 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 I would rather you tell the students, I like how you persevered through that problem. I like your dedication because I receive students from the elementary where it's pretty much you need to know your facts, right? So
Right.
answer getting. They come to me and they're A's. And some of them will now stop taking risks because they've been told they're so good at math. They're so good at math. They stop taking risks. And so in middle school, it's about processes. And so they stop taking risks because they only want to do that which they know they're going to get right. And so those students eventually by eighth grade, they become C students. The C students, they're okay. They're okay. I can take a risk. I'm a C student. And they become the A students. I've
Right.
seen repeatedly happening.
Right.
So I challenge parents to tell their students the intrinsic perseverance, dedication, hard work, right? Versus just giving them a title. You're great at math. They'll stop taking risks.
Right.
And life is about taking risks so that you can
Yeah,
learn from mistakes.
exactly. Adopt the
Yeah.
growth mindset
Mhm.
mentality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another question here for you. What role do you think creativity plays in teaching subjects like math, which are often seen as rigid or technical?
Whew. I had to go through a lot of times we teach the way we were taught, and the way I was taught was rigid. So I had to deconstruct my mind and learn how to use manipulatives to teach math, learn how to use drawings to teach math, learn how to use other things apart from how I was taught. So that has been a journey. Gladly, I embraced it and I challenged myself. It wasn't easy because what's easy is just to teach the way I was taught.
Right,
But we're in a new era where that doesn't work anymore,
right,
right? We need to figure out how to best impact the learning through various different avenues, right?
right,
If you can not only listening, writing, manipulatives, etc. So that has been a journey. Being curious, I had to be curious. If I expected my students to be curious, I have to be curious.
yeah,
I have to create the environment in my classroom where a student can actually feel free to let me know that, hey, Miss Mwavua, I think there's a better way. And I
right.
sit back. I usually send my students to the front. Go ahead, coach us, teach us, show us. And then I challenge them that for us to accept it, we have to actually try it several times so that if it's always working, then we can adopt it, but not just once, twice, or thrice. So that's a
Right,
challenge I give them. But as a teacher, I have to create that environment where they're free to say, I think there's a better way. Here's what I would do. And sometimes I actually adopt the students' way and say, you know what? If I were you guys, I'll go with the way student
right.
A showed us.
Yeah, if it works, it works.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Curiosity is the key.
Yeah. And I learned how to be curious my first couple of years teaching. I was on the board trying to draw a cube, and I was struggling. These students came. I said, Miss Wall, can I show? I was like, please show me. In 5 seconds, he showed me how to draw a cube, and I said, I'll forever remain curious because if I
Yes.
don't, I will really be lowering
Stuck
my
in your
IQ,
ways.
literally.
Right.
I'll be blocking my IQ from growing by
That's
not being
right.
curious. Yeah.
After 15 years in education, what keeps you excited to show up every day and make an impact?
Man, the students. The students, doesn't matter if yesterday was a hard day, you had to go hard on them. Tomorrow they come back like you're the best thing. They come back with energy, with their smiles. They're curious. In fact, some of them they ask me, "So, what are we learning tomorrow?" You know? So they keep me, I say they keep me young. I love their curiosity. I
Right,
love their drive to just learn.
right,
I'm also motivated by the way education is evolving. The future of education, I believe, is is changing. I'm not sure if we are ready yet because of some things we are still teaching. For example, I have a challenge with, for me, and I may be wrong, but I'm wondering why I need to spend a week teaching my students how to multiply decimals. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't know what's behind it, what the machine is doing, but the calculator machines can do that easily. So, do I really spend so much time? teaching long division versus, I'm not saying not teach it. I'm just saying where is where are my efforts best spent, right? A lot of times, once again, we talk about human connection, right? There's a human connection, there's the technical piece. The technical piece can do the calculating of multiplying decimals, dividing numbers. So I'm wondering right now, I'm in that phase where I'm trying to actually start creating a curriculum where it is present day and futuristic versus 19th century, 20th century. They were doing that stuff back then. I don't believe we have to keep doing that stuff. I believe we need to spend our energies in a new direction based on the new ways technology is coming at us and AI. I think there's a new path. So willing to be connected with anybody on that path and on that journey.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand. I have another question here before the last one. I've been asking you a lot of questions so far. If you could reimagine education in the next decade, what would it look like, especially with AI, robotics, and global collaboration in the mix?
Hmm. I think if I answer that, I might as well start my company right now, right? I don't have all the answers,
Right,
but I do imagine an education that is definitely, which I'm currently doing in my classroom, flexible, personalized, global. Now, not sure how the human part, it also needs to be deeply human. That's the part that's we still need. That's why we still need teachers.
right,
Um, Currently, what I'm doing in my class through the Modern Classroom project, that's a curriculum that helps students learn at their pace. It's flexible, personalized. So, what do I mean? Well, at the first unit, I introduced the unit, but over, let's say, the course of 4, 5, 6 days, some students will be further ahead, some students will not be as further ahead because we all run at different paces. So I'm already showing students that, so I usually create videos that, or borrow videos from YouTube that teach the concepts I want, so that if a student has been absent for 4 or 5 days, they can still come in and it's as if they don't have to miss what we learned. So learning to be flexible, but more so personalized learning, I think is the key here, depending on each learner's needs. Different people come to math with different strengths. Some are better at numbers and operations, others are better at algebra, some are better at geometry. For example, there was a student who she struggled with numbers, operations, algebra, but when it came to geometry, she was leading.
right,
And so I leaned in on her as a coach, and I'm trying to help them learn how to coach other students. So personalized learning, I believe, is one way which AI will be able to help us. Being flexible, for some reason, some students need to be absent for a week, right? Could be sick or other situations.
right,
Um, Not only that, AI also supports, helps build creativity and problem solving, can challenge students. But once again, as a teacher, I have to create that environment where they can now collaborate. I can use AI to prompt some questions for the students to collaborate. Not only locally, they can also collaborate globally. One of my teachers who teaches Spanish, he last year managed to connect students in Guatemala with the students here and talk about different issues. Not only would they also help them learn Spanish, but they could teach them English. So it was fantastic collaboration.
right.
You know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's I don't know if maybe you might know this, but there's a university around here called King University. They have a campus open in China. They've had them there for a
Mm.
while. So that
Hmm.
brings that interconnection between different students and different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Another area I think is some teachers are strong in one area, but AI can help bring different perspectives
right,
that even the teacher themselves, once again, you have to remain curious first before you ask it of students. As a teacher, I have to be curious,
right.
right? I've always said the day I say I know it all and I don't need to do it differently, then I need to retire from teaching, right?
Exactly.
Because I'm actually putting a crutch, I'm actually not servicing my students well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Even to yourself, that would be a disservice to think that you know everything now. You're saturated.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Mhm.
Finally, Daniel, what
Mhm.
message would you like to leave with educators and students who are trying to navigate this fast changing, tech-driven world?
Okay. Well, technology will keep changing, and I think we need to embrace it. Don't fear it. Embrace it, help shape it. Jump into the conversation. Lean in forward. Do something. Take a free AI course on LinkedIn. Ask your students, your children. Let's talk about AI. How do you see it? What are they talking about it in school? So pretty much stay curious, stay human, and stay open, meaning embrace it. I think with that, we can all have a place in this world. AI can have a place in this world. Well, it already has a place in this world. Same with technology.
Mm,
In fact, it's creating more space in this world for itself.
right.
And to some people, that's disconcerting, but I
Right.
say embrace it. It's here, it's not going anywhere.
Now,
If you don't embrace it, you will be hurting,
yeah,
right?
it'll leave you
There are
behind.
people hurting right
Yeah.
now who did not see coal was going to be going away. There's still
Right.
people wishing for coal, those good days to come back of coal.
Right.
I They may come back, but I highly think why don't you take a chance on this not coming back? Get up, off your seat, and get to work.
Yes.
Relearn. Start
Yeah.
learning about how to fix these machines, how to work with AI, because it's not
Yeah.
going anywhere.
Nah, it has no plan to go anywhere. In fact, I think um OpenAI, which is ChatGPT,
Mhm.
has invested over $1 trillion in data centers. So that kind of investment is not to play around with, so it's not gonna go anywhere.
Mhm.
And I to agree more with what you're saying, it's best to embark in the process, engage in it, and do not get left behind. It goes beyond using ChatGPT or anything like that, but there are tools in the medical field, in education, in higher education, and on so many fronts in banking. All of these things are permeated by the tools that AI have come forward with, and
Yeah.
there's no going back.
Yeah.
Like
In
you said.
fact, even those adults here right now, whichever industry you're in, I don't know which different industries are represented. The first thing you can do is just be curious.
Yeah.
How is AI going to affect my industry?
Yep.
It will. You might as well get
Hmm.
ahead of that. In
Right.
fact, it's probably getting done behind your back. You just
Right.
don't know it. By the
Right.
time they roll it out, it might be too late if you haven't leaned in and be start asking your supervisors, hey, start having that discussion. How do we
Right.
start a club at work? Let's talk about
Yeah.
how AI will remember AI is about right now replacing repetitive tasks, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So if that's part of your job, how can I get in front of this so that by the time it replaces my job, I'm already skilled up, right?
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Daniel, that was a great presentation here. We are
Thank you.
now transitioning to the audience who may have some comments, some questions, or any kind of input coming from them will be highly appreciated. So by all means, please unmute and you may ask questions. And Daniel is here to address any of your questions.
I have a question
Yes.
for Dan for Daniel. Hi.
Yes.
So,
Hi.
I'm curious to know what are teachers doing to incorporate non-Eurocentric perspectives, by using culturally responsive teaching. And I know we live in the Western world
Yeah.
and everything is so Eurocentric. If it didn't
Yes.
happen in Europe, it didn't happen, which is really, really sad. It deprives a lot of us from going deeper and knowing better things and knowing where the source of where all of this thing is coming from to begin with. So
Yeah.
many things have been covered so
Mhm.
that we're left thinking that the world nothing happened before Europe. So,
Yes, indeed.
so I'm curious to know, and
Mhm.
it might be very difficult for you because you have to work within this Western system, right?
Yeah.
So there's only so much you can do outside of the
Yeah.
system. But I'm just curious if have you have you noticed is there anything that's being done you know, to give children access to that, you know? Um,
Yes.
But not
So
not just children. I mean, let me just add one more thing. I find also we're very young, very young oriented, very young centric, if I may use that word. And we often forget to our education, people are saying like, it's a lifelong learning. And a lot of times we forget about the older people who wish to learn. It seems to me
mm,
our education is geared toward the young, young, dumb, and full of blank type of people.
mhm.
And no, it's like we're taking a big part of the population who's doing the paying, who's doing the working for the younger kids to learn, and yet they're not addressed when we talk about education, right?
Okay. So let me rephrase your question, make sure I understood it. You're asking what is in the educational space, what are we doing to help students learn from a non-Eurocentric perspective? Is that your question?
Well, partly. My question is, yes, I understand we live in a Western world and a lot of things are going to be Eurocentric. But
Mm,
what are we doing to add more to that, to let people know? And there are all these other things that came before, and there are all these other different cultures, different ways of seeing things. That
mhm.
that's my question.
Okay, so one thing is there's a grant that has been, especially in DC, to help inner city youth. It's called Study Abroad. It's free to travel. Passports are provided because we realize that learning how people do things differently is a very healthy way to also grow. So there's that initiatives every for eighth graders and 11th graders in the public school system. They get to they do need to put in the application, but it's nothing that could should stop anybody from trying to go on these trips. Teachers are also really trying a lot in the arts, the English language arts. They're really trying to bring books that are more. I teach mostly in a largely Afro-centric community, so they're really trying to have books that speak to their culture or the Black culture. And then we also have the second dominant culture is the Latino community. They're also trying to bring those kind of books. With regards to AI, I have seen for adults, we still need to curate good examples for students. I have seen where they'll create images through AI and have the content where you can learn from your perspective, if that makes sense, not just a Eurocentric. So that is in the works. There are people actually in that space trying to create these, I would say, maybe Andrea might be able to help me out with this. Chatbots, would that be correct, Andrea? Chatbots that can help create or curate learning environments where someone can learn from the same concept, but from a different perspective. I hope I've answered your question, Ms. Giles.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and sorry if I may add to that. I remember that when I taught fifth grade, there was the curriculum that we were using at that time for social studies. It was very much Eurocentric, right? So everything was built around Christopher Columbus and how the impact of, basically it was very positive, right? The perspective, it was very positively put. The curriculum was very positively shaped toward glamorizing European history, or how the authors presented this notion, right? So what we did as teachers, it was kind of like you had to kind of gear the kids, shift their understanding that perspective can make or break things, right? So if you're teaching kids, if you're asking open-ended questions, thought-provoking questions, to kind of, you're not telling them that there's something wrong with that, but the way that you're shaping the discussions will hopefully be able to help them come up with their own understanding. Well, what happened when these people came and excuse me, they took over everything. What happened to those people who were already living here? What happened to them, and how did that impact them, etc.? Kind of get them to start thinking about that, and then they come up with their own stuff, and they're before they know it, before I knew it, my kids were like saying, "Oh, but Christopher Columbus was evil. How could he do that? How could it?" They were having their own discussions, and all I was doing was kind of facilitating. I wasn't just agreeing with them, saying that Christopher Columbus was good or bad, but I just wanted to raise their awareness to the fact that it's not only about what these folks did, it's the impact that what they did had on other people who are already inhabitants of the land. So that's kind of a way that we can come away from teaching kids about the different Eurocentric approaches that the curriculum has had on kids. Sorry.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for giving your students that experience and allowing them creating that environment where they can actually now, by their own abilities, be able to come up with, hey, this guy was bad news. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. If I may add to that, Gino and whoever may be concerned about that question, Daniel, I hope you don't mind my adding a little bit more to what you've already answered. There's this notion called ethnomathematics, and this is against the Eurocentric values embedded in the curriculum and in the learning process, especially in the Western world. But it's not just in the Western world. Anywhere that has been impacted by colonialism, the enslavement of any group, your education is can technically be called a miseducation system because what you are learning has nothing to do with your cultural values. And we can see that in the math and many other subjects that are being taught to students. And in my own example, when at the end of a semester, I would give extra credits to students. And the way I would do that is by using the notion that there was a theorem by Pythagoras, supposedly who came up with it, and it carries the name. So what I do for extra credit, I would allow them to write a 4 to 5 page paper for them to do their research on that particular individual, for them to come up with, wait a minute, what happened? I thought this guy was behind that notion of that theorem, but it was never so. So we have a whole lot that are in our curriculum. And to us, this is why a lot of students think math is for a particular group or for some folks, whereas it's something that if you give them examples pertaining to the things that they are accustomed to, they will understand, oh, so it applies to me too. I'll give you another example if you don't mind. I had a student and she was a straight A student. That was a college level math. And there was a difficult word problem that was giving her problems. And I know she would be able to do it otherwise, but she was from Peru. And I know coming from South America, a major game, a major sport is soccer. So these are the sports they are accustomed to, contrary to somebody who's here who may be more into basketball or the American football. These are different. So they don't know. And the concept embedded in that problem had to do with basketball. And that student knew nothing about basketball. So now there she was going to fail for something that otherwise, if you give her a different example for what she is used to, then she would understand it. So the basic thing is that this guy who was from Brazil, D'Ambrosio, he came up with the notion of ethnomathematics and the multicultural nature of mathematics because not everywhere has a base 10, not everywhere has a base 12, not everywhere has a base 2. Some places you can have multiple ones. In some parts of Africa, it can be, the base is just one. You can have multiple ones. And then you can count like that. So not everywhere is the same, but it's just that learning it from a Eurocentric based curriculum, then of course that's what it would be. But in my case, because I love history a lot too, I try not to give so much credence or so much value to one particular way where I would give um, make students believe that this is the only way. It's the way that those people know it and the way it's been taught, conveyed to you in a book or by a teacher, then that's the way it is. Now, there are so many different ways. This is why it's important for you to know your audience, to know their backgrounds is, their demographics. It helps you at least see what in their culture is something that's really important to them. and then you
Right.
can use that as a tool and then to make them understand what otherwise they would not be able to address and understand. But that just in a nutshell around that Eurocentric thing. So for teachers, I think they can address these things in such a way that they see what background that student has and then how I can connect with what really is important. And then also teachers can read even more beyond the subject and see how those other countries operate and see what's in it that they can also use to teach, so that's just my piece adding to that.
No, that's good, Claude, because earlier I had said that technology will remove the repetitive task for a teacher. That way they can spend more time doing research, like you're saying. For example,
Right.
how can I apply this same concept in Peru? Since I
Yes.
have maybe 5 students from Peru or 5 students, 10 students from El Salvador. What is it they do there that I can, so that's the part where the human connection really is important, right?
Yeah.
And the last thing I was talking to my brother, and he gave me a definition of education that I've never heard before. He said education is supposed to equip you to survive and thrive in your current environment.
Yes.
Seek solutions based on the resources available, which goes to speaking to what you just say, Claude. You may not need, based on your situation, you may not need that base 10.
Yes,
You need
exactly.
something else. You need
Right.
another type of
Yeah.
math,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Because each culture creates its own math based upon the societal needs. So when it comes to people who said, you know what, your way or your ancestors' way is not important. Therefore, you're gonna learn it my way. So what you do, you make the adjustments, and then it becomes so natural, thinking that's the only way. Otherwise, then you would say, oh, wait a minute, I know it another way. I could do it that way too. So it's because where you come from, this is the way they do it. So that's just that's just how things are, I guess.
yeah. Okay. Nice.
Sorry for holding on for so long. So these are subjects of passion.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Hmm.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. This is Andrea Finley here. I just wanted to say this was a really good podcast and discussion about education and the impact of integrating AI, right? I think um, it sheds a light on the fact that it's so important for professionals, just all professionals, to be having these types of discussions, because AI will impact every profession. So I think it's really good to have educators on, and you guys are just sharing your experience. I really enjoyed this. So just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea, for being here. Andrea was our last speaker last week, and we had a good time here too. We enjoyed her presence, and she added a whole lot to the discussion that was worth keeping everybody busy and enjoying the learning process. So thanks, Andrea, for the last time, and thanks for being part of the audience today.
Hmm.
Thank you for having me.
Hmm.
Yes, thank you. Tonight's discussion was just as invigorating, especially because this is also a topic that I enjoy because I'm close to it. I am in it, so I did enjoy tonight's conversations as I did last week as well. And actually, all the podcasts so far I've been thoroughly enjoying, and I have gotten a lot of insight. Andrea, I'm still trying out what you suggested. So thank you so much in terms of what I can use in terms of AI to help me with transcribing. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And you know where to find me if you need additional support.
Yes, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is somebody here who has not asked a question yet, who always does? Lucy?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to put Lucy on the spot. She always asks questions.
Yeah, well, this session was so insightful. It seems like all my questions were answered. So when we talked about math, we talked about cultural awareness, we talked about teaching styles. It's like, wow, this is great. I should have recorded this. You know what I mean? But
It's recorded.
yeah, good. You can share it with me. But
Right.
like I said in the comments, I wish I knew you guys when I was, younger and taking math classes and driving myself crazy. But, when you mention that as a pattern, it's like, yeah, like, wow, it's like an aha moment. You know what I mean? And it's all about perception for real, because my son, I don't know if he's still on, because he tutors, and he's like a math whiz. And I
Yes.
never spoke about my anxieties about math, because he grasped the concept so easily. But all I would say to him is like, "What? Look at you!
Right.
I wish I could have been like you." You know what I mean? But just like what you said earlier, don't say too much, because sometimes when you kind of like hype them up, they feel like, I'm good, I got it. So I'm glad I worded it different. Like, wow, you're really good at this. I wish I could have been as good. And I just appreciate these podcasts because they're so informative. You learn something, and like you said, you learn something from everybody in the room. Everybody has something to share. This is wonderful. This is really great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for
Thank
your
you,
time on a
Lucy.
Sunday evening, right? To give us so many gems. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right. And indeed, the only impediment to the process of learning is putting of fear up front. And the minute that you do, then you really are for some rough ride through school. And sometimes we see students rushing to taking majors that otherwise they're not passionate about, but just because they have the fear of math, then they tend to go for something that they believe is deprived of math or devoid of math, that doesn't have enough math that will take that challenge, that will challenge them enough. So the fear of that challenge really makes students learn things that they are not passionate about at all. So
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
it's a critical thing for kids to understand, or for parents to understand. If you keep at it, you persist, you ask questions, you do not question your intelligence in doing so.
Right.
You do not
Exactly.
belittle yourself in the
Hmm.
process. If you
Right.
think somebody else is more intelligent than you just because that person chooses to adopt a different way of learning, a different way of finding out what the solution to that particular problem is, then you will think, I'll wait for that person to explain it to me, because on myself alone, I don't have what it takes to do what that person is doing. What I always make sure that my girls know is that no one is more intelligent than they are. And the belief that somebody else is more intelligent than you, or what you can do instead, if you wish to use that as a measure to find out where you stand, it's best that you do, you know what? I'm going to apply myself and take that particular issue as a challenge and solve it, address it, because you will go through life where challenges will arise and will require your thinking ability, and say, you know what, I have to apply myself, find critical thinking, and say, I have to come up with a solution. I cannot let this go on, because the ongoing accumulation of fear, ongoing accumulation of mediocrity, not mediocrity, will lead to mediocrity. And then you'll shy away from pursuing higher education to the extent that otherwise you would. So I highly advise and suggest to stay away from any fear, especially in the academic world where you might think this is not for me. If somehow someone encouraged you to think so, look into it and say what's in there really that made it not for me, because you are in the process to belittle yourself, your cognitive ability. You cannot afford to do that. It's a very and highly competitive world. If you have those misconceptions, you will be left behind. And society does not care. They'll step on your back to go ahead, to get ahead. So if you believe these things, you are for a rough ride in life. So please stay away from that type of fear. Um, Pursue your education to the highest degree there could be, and then use your potentials without any limit. No one should ever tell you this is what you can do or you cannot do. Never buy that from anyone.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
my that's my contention on that.
that's a good note to end on, Claude. I just
Yes.
want to add that, and I hate to have to add after that fantastic um, spiel right there. That is where time and energy are spent, proficiency is gained. Now,
Right.
some people don't need to spend that much time and energy, but you just have to lean in forward. I always tell my students once in a year, I tell them, I put a picture of a baby, maybe the first 2 months, and then maybe the next 5 months, and then eventually, they see them crawling, and then kind of tittering as they learn to walk. So I tell them, how many times did the baby practice? At what stage is the baby learning to walk? And they say whenever they're tittering. Most people are when the kid is tittering, and I'm like, no, when they're on their back and cannot walk or crawl because they're looking at adults walking. So it starts there, right? And then I also tell them, how many times did most of us human beings fall before we learned how to walk? And researchers have shown at least over 120 times on average, you will fall before you finally learn and master. So I say, so why do you think for math you should only try it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times and
Exactly.
gain proficiency? Now
Yep.
you can walk, talk, chew your food. That was a very challenging task. And
Yes.
so, yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
In terms
And
of, go ahead.
and that's one that's very true. I can even I use one that example before. I asked that student, do you drive to come to school? And she said, yes. I said, has anyone ever told you that you could not drive? No. But someone told you that you couldn't do math and you respected that to the extent that you applied it. So, do you know what it takes, the complexity behind being able to drive and not paying attention to which street you're turning, which street in order for you to remember all the turns that you've taken, the red lights, the stop signs, and all of these things? It's a complex thing. Now, imagine someone had mentioned to you, there's no way you'll be able to drive, and you would believe it. You wouldn't drive, but it's as complex as the math that you are afraid of. It's that same complexity, but don't have that predistorted notion about, math is not for me, I cannot do it, it's not for me, somebody else is more intelligent in it. No, you apply yourself, you'll do it just like anybody else. Somebody can be done in 15, 20 minutes. It's okay. If it takes you 24 hours, so be it, but the end result will be the same.
I love
Can I
it.
just add to something to this before we
Yes.
go? I mean, as far as math is concerned, I feel that math is the most exciting thing in the freaking world. Okay, nothing is better than it's in everything we do. It's in all of our activities, and then that speaks also about AI because it's in everything we do, every step we make, every all the stars, the way they're aligned, the earth, everything is mathematics.
Yeah.
Uh, cultivating food, everything is science and mathematics. And my thing is that I feel that that is not it's not emphasized enough in school, or the way that we teach it to young kids is so uh, it, they don't really see the application of math in their lives. And I think that's what a lot of times the educational system misses. You're giving a book and you're giving this a bunch of problems or things to solve, but you don't really understand. A lot of times we don't see the connection between what we're solving and what it solves in real life. And because of that, there's a disconnection. Once it's taught and we see how things are applied in real life, it's mind-boggling. It's like you gotta love it. It becomes so exciting. And I think that's what I think what happens is we lose a lot of students because they are bored. Okay.
Right.
One of the biggest thing you can do to a child's brain is bore them to death. And I'm convinced that for 90% of the of the students in school, the school system loses them because they're boring them to death. If we make math exciting, there is no way a child will not just naturally lap onto it because it is so exciting. And that's one of the things that I learned from my own experience going to school. When I was looking at it from I went through school and I studied all this stuff, and I'm like, I graduated and thought, okay, what did I just learn here? Okay, I don't see the application of this thing. I had to go and do my own research and really find out where these things are applicable. And I thought to myself, my God, if it had been taught to me that way, how exciting it would have been. But the school system also is is built on a certain number of people you have to fail. So they don't tell you how to get from A to Z. Like you can just knowing how to walk on water is knowing where the rocks are, right? So in school they don't tell you if you did if you went from here, boom, 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 you're there already. They don't tell you that. They give you a long-winded stuff that lasts a whole year for you to get a whole semester, when in fact it shouldn't take that long, because we're dealing with people and we're dealing with intelligent minds. And unfortunately, what we do, we take those intelligent minds and we dumb them down, and then we wonder why the kids are not learning. And I'm of the mindset that 95% of these kids are able to learn. It's just that these books and how things are being they are taught in a way to fail 80% of the class so that only 10%. The biggest intelligent ones who are able to figure it out are able to pass. It's like a trick system. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when, in my opinion, the point of education is to drop it in my hand, drop it the way I can understand it, so that I can and do it. And it's not a fault of the teachers, because the teachers are being passed down that system too, and they have to teach it the way, you know what I mean? They have to teach it that way. And I think it's such a waste of taking brain matter and brain power and wasting it for 18, 20, 30 years teaching people math examples that should have been solved by the fifth grade. If things were taught bright and fast, and respect the children's mind and respect the adult mind as well. As human beings, we are just so much smarter than that. We are so much smarter than that, and we are being wasted. And people who are wasted, they turn to violence. They turn to being a lot of students. They start to agitate in class because they're bored. Because kids come to school, when people come to a class, they come to learn. They come with the excitement to learn. And what happens is, when you find kids, they're looking at the window, the teacher's talking. This is not that, I think what happens, they haven't taught a lot of people how to this is a kid who's smart. He's saying, you're boring me to death. You're not giving me the information that you need to give me. And therefore, I clock out. Therefore, I'm out of here. It's like going to a movie. If you're going to a movie and you're watching an exciting movie, right? People don't have to force you to pay attention. It grabs your attention and you're there and you like it and you like it forever. And what happens is I find that with math and AI and all that things, we're not grabbing those kids' attention. We're not grabbing the adults' attention. So they're bored and they turn to other things. They start poking their neighbor. So anyway, so I went on and on and on.
No, but you're right, because we tend to see that school does not inspire kids to develop a thirst for learning so much. And this is why even when school is out, kids to be not just kids, but anybody who does not really find their joy at the learning. So they tend to think, well, I'm so happy that school is out, school is closed. They tend to feel that way because the learning process is not so enticing to them being at the school. So
learning did not take place. That's what
right,
happened. The
yeah,
learning
that's
did not
usually,
take
yeah,
place.
that's the whole reason. Because if that were to be, if it was something that was so enjoyable for them, they would not have been feeling that way. So it's unfortunate. Yeah.
Okay.
Daniel, we have held you hostage there for quite a while. You've heard all of our concerns, and they are all based on your presentation here today. Um, if no one else has any other questions, I will conclude. Um, Anybody else? I guess this is it, right? Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So what an uplift! I had to put in a few words just to say thank you for that presentation, which was an uplifting and thought-provoking conversation with you, an educator who reminds us that learning is a living, breathing experience shaped by curiosity, courage, and compassion. From bringing AI and robotics into the classroom to showing students the world beyond their textbooks. Daniel, you represent the very heart of what CyberKinetic stands for, using technology to elevate humanity. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe to the CyberKinetic podcast wherever you listen. And visit cyberkineticpodcast.com for more conversations exploring how AI, innovation, and human connection are redefining the future of work, education, and wellness. Next Saturday, or most likely next weekend, we have a guest on Sunday. That's gonna be a police captain. She also has she's got a doctoral degree in education. That's gonna be at the same time on this Sunday at 5 o'clock. I truly would look forward to having you, and Daniel, maybe you could be just like Andrea was today in the audience. Maybe you could also be part of the audience next Sunday and being here with us in asking questions or making a comment of any kind. That would be highly appreciated.
Sure.
Until next time, please stay curious, stay inspired, and stay cyber aware. Thank you so much to all of you, the audience, and everyone who is here today. Not was here, but who is here today. But thank you so much and kindly. We are having this every weekend. You can visit the website. You'll see for yourself the list of people who are listed until the end of this month. And I also have a list of other people coming up next month. So please, these are going to be very interesting conversations. You would benefit a lot in being part of it, and others will benefit a lot in participating in it. Again, thank you kindly, and may you have a pleasant night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too, thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.